Alright, now that I've handed out awards for 2024, it's time to instead look to the future. It's officially 2025, and this is the tech that I'm looking forward to most. This video will be about the tech I'm most excited to see this year. So let's dive right in. I will say a few tech products from each company, but mainly focus on Apple, as most of this video will be about Apple's roadmap for 2025. Because if I'm being totally honest, Apple at the end of the day is where I mainly dedicate my channel to, and many folks out there are very similar to me. And also, Apple is probably the one big tech company that didn't show themselves at all at CES. So this is well deserved. And that's great, because it seems like 2025 will be a big year for Apple. 2024 wasn't so hot, as it was the first time in 13 years they didn't introduce some kind of new product that year. And in general, the products like the Vision Pro had lower sales than they expected, with literally 1 in every 3 Vision Pros being returned. I guess that means only 2 people in the entire world own one now. Similarly, even though iPhone 16 sales increased by a bit, especially for the Plus model, it seems like the Pro models are actually doing worse than the 15 Pros. Of course, lower sales doesn't mean a worse phone. Obviously, as I've said before, it's a great phone. But it does mean that much of the world doesn't feel super tempted to upgrade to this next best thing. Also, the big thing this year was Apple Intelligence. But it not only isn't that good, but also is having a slow rollout, with the full set of features coming literally 3 months before the next version of Apple's AI will be displayed at WWDC this year. Alright, that was all to make a statement, but let's look to the future, as 2025 is looking to be promising for Apple. I will actually go in chronological order, so let's start with the first event that will take place in March. We will get a completely redesigned iPhone SE 4, or the iPhone SE 2025, or heck, even some rumors are pointing towards the name of iPhone 16e, which would be weird considering that if they still refresh it every few years, we would have the iPhone 16e and then the iPhone 19 or something. But okay, that's besides the point. The point is, the iPhone SE 4, that's what I'm going to call it, will mark the end of an era for the iPhone, as it will be the first iPhone SE without the home button, swapping out Touch ID for much more reliable and quick Face ID. And even though many of you were hoping for an iPhone Mini form factor, I'm not so sure that's the path Apple would take here. It will also have USB-C, thank you EU, and an iPhone 14 design with squared off rails and OLED, but without the ultra-wide camera. And I'll get more on that absence later, as I have some thoughts on it. What it will have is the same 48 megapixel camera sensor as the iPhone 15, which will allow for 2x crop zoom and much better image quality. There is also a chance we might see the action button, but the latest case leaks contradict that idea. Following the pattern of every iPhone SE, it will get the same chip as the base model iPhone. But this year, it also means it will most likely have 8GB of RAM to support Apple Intelligence, which not even the $699 iPhone 15 will have. This will be great value, starting at either $499 or $549, but there is a catch. It has a notch instead of dynamic island and lacks an ultra-wide camera. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, Alex, but this is a budget phone. You can't have the latest phone features. And also, the dynamic island isn't all that useful, and I barely ever use the ultra-wide camera. And to you, I'd say this. Yes, but these features do add to the overall experience. I'm gonna be honest, like many others, I don't care about the camera options. I just open the camera app and hit the shutter button. But the thing is, I do actually use the ultra-wide camera on my iPhone 12 Pro Max a lot, especially for capturing vast landscapes that literally wouldn't look good shot on a wide camera. And dynamic island, I know it doesn't add a lot, and I'm gonna be honest again, I probably wouldn't notice a huge difference in my day-to-day life. But it is really nice to see things like your ongoing timers while, say, you're looking at a map. And the pill cutout, even though you barely ever notice the top of your screen, it does look a lot more even and elegant than the notch. But what's my point? I've been rambling on, and that certainly isn't my point. If you mention to me that this is a budget phone, I'd like you to take a look at some other budget phones, like the Pixel 8a. I mean, just from the outside, we see an ultra-wide camera and basically the same design as the 8, except for more round corners, which is only to distinguish it, and you can't really call a trade-off. And along with that, a bigger chin, which I've also mentioned this, you barely notice in day-to-day life if you had one. And it is definitely less prominent than the notch could ever be. So then, where else did they make some trade-offs? Well, for one, the ultra-wide camera on the 8 has a wide-angle of view and has autofocus for macro. But you wouldn't really notice this unless you take loads of macro shots, which, let's be real, none of us here really do. Other things include IP67 instead of IP68, a Gorilla Glass Victus panel versus plastic back, 6.2-inch screen for the 8 instead of 6.1 on the 8A, slightly smaller camera pixels, but more megapixels for the 8A. Point is, these are all much smaller things you barely notice. Like, why couldn't Apple do that? Because, of course, they're Apple. They like to make the differences between their flagship and mid-range models very noticeable. But also, because this is Apple, also because this is an iPhone we're talking about, the ecosystem and the more users will definitely pull in more people than, say, the Pixel 9a when it launches around the same time. Okay, that was a lot of talking for just one product. So I promise for the next products, I won't say as much. So also in this March event, we will also see an updated M4 MacBook Air, which will mostly be a spec bump, and maybe we'll have the 12-megapixel center stage camera we had on the M4 MacBook Pros last year. The latest rumors have told us that this actually might arrive later this month, in January. We will also see new iPads, an M3 iPad Air, and the 11th gen base model iPad, which will both be pretty basic upgrades, with the 11th gen iPad having an A18 for Apple Intelligence and literally only the M3 chip for the iPad Air. And if you're upgrading your iPad just for a faster chip, we've got some problems. Also, there's a possibility that we will see a new AirTag with a speaker that is harder to remove, so that it will make stalkers' jobs much harder, and an improved second-generation ultra-wideband chip just like the one found on the iPhone 15s. It is also mentioned that there will be Apple Vision Pro integration, but we don't know how that'll work out yet. Along with that, there has been talk of a new product, a HomePod with a screen, as the HomePod is the home controlling device that houses Siri, which currently does not support Apple Intelligence for some reason because of no A17 Pro or A18 series chip. I suspect they will have to bring it sometime soon. Many rumors say it will launch with the new operating system called HomeOS, which will basically be like an operating system mainly consisting of flipping through widgets and photos and news, things like that, just like your Amazon Echo. It will apparently have the A18 chip and a 6 to 7 inch OLED screen, which seems quite small to me, as my iPhone 12 Pro Max has a 6.7 inch screen, which will be very close to that size. Mark Gurman expects it to be $1,000 or over when it launches, which you gotta admit is pretty dang expensive for a home accessory. But also, you know how I mentioned A18? Well, to be perfectly honest, I actually doubt it will launch before WWDC. Because yes, even though this new Siri in iOS 18 is better, or will be better, it still won't change the way you use it. Because even though it does understand personal context and what is on your screen, it is still the same dumb, Apple, the same dumb assistant talking through your screen. What it is promising is the iOS 19 features for Siri, which sounds like it will switch to an LLM to make it more like, say, ChatGPT or Gemini. That's why I predict that this new HomePod will actually launch, say, during the launch of the iPhone 17s, or heck, as we already know that they will delay this new Siri all the way till March 2026, maybe not even this year. This is contrary to what most rumors say right now, but still, it's pretty interesting, and I thought it was mentioning. Now, the next event will be their WWDC, or Worldwide Developers Conference, or the event where they show off all the changes they've made to their operating systems. This year, they will likely show us the next version of Apple Intelligence, and there aren't that many rumors yet, but the ones that we have seem pretty promising. As said, the main big thing will be LLM Siri, but we might also see the previously rumored Apple Music playlist generation, which I don't know how many of you guys actually use Apple Music. I kind of wish they extended it to, like, say, Spotify or YouTube Music or something. But if you do, get hyped for that. Apparently, according to Mark Gurman, a more than usual number of features will be delayed for their new software. And he also suggested Apple might not follow the annual release schedule so tightly anymore, as they want the final product to be polished instead of scrambling to get everything done. Which, I mean, it is disappointing, but I completely understand. Let's all be patient and give them more time, as it feels like the current set of Apple Intelligence features aren't the best. But here, we will not only see new software, as it is likely that the debut of the M4 Ultra chip will be at WWDC this year, which will be an absolute powerhouse. The Mac Studio and Mac Pro are in dire need of a new chip, as the M2 Ultra is basically as powerful as the M4 Max, and it looks like this new M4 Ultra will deliver. But it will have quite different architecture compared to the M2 Ultra, as the M2 Ultra is literally using a special connector to fuse two M2 Max chips together. But starting on the M3 chip series, Apple didn't include that connector on the M3 Max, which means this new M4 Ultra will likely be built from the ground up, which could either be a great move or a terrible move. I'm not so sure yet. But aside from the new chip and likely Thunderbolt 5 ports, there will be no other changes to these desktops. But it's not only the desktop, as it is possible that Apple might introduce a new Pro Display XDR, which literally came out 6 years ago and hasn't been updated since. And that is disappointing considering it's $5,000 and still doesn't have a 120Hz ProMotion display. But there aren't many rumors for this, and I wouldn't be holding my breath. After WWDC, we get to our annual iPhone event, which is considered the busiest event of the year. So, of course, let's start with the iPhones. We will get the iPhone 17 lineup, but instead of the usual Plus model, we will get a standard iPhone 17, iPhone 17 Pro, iPhone 17 Pro Max, and an all-new iPhone 17 Air or Slim, or heck, whatever you want to call it at this point. In fact, let's start with that, the new model. As the name suggests, this model will be ultra thin, 5 to 6 millimeters, according to multiple sources, which will be the thinnest iPhone ever, even thinner than the iPhone 6, which, let's hope we don't get a repeat of Bendgate. It will have a 6.55 or 6.6 inch screen, but as a compromise, it will only have one camera, which from the $899 starting price it will have is super disappointing. It will also only have one speaker instead of two, which is another huge letdown. And obviously, there's not enough room to fit a huge battery, so there will be some battery compromises as well. And see, that's the problem. They will have to make so many sacrifices with this phone to just make it thinner. And hey, let's be real, almost all of us just slap a case on our phones. So like, yeah, the Plus model isn't doing well in sales, but I just don't think this is the answer. Because just like the camera control, I feel like this will be very hyped for in the rumors, but once it actually comes out, we will probably realize the truth, which will mean that it will actually not sell better than the Plus model. Alright, you guys can probably figure that my take on this new Slim model isn't good. But what about the standard iPhone 17? This, on the other hand, looks very promising, as for the first time ever in the base model iPhone, we will finally get 120Hz ProMotion. But even though literally all the rumor mill has said this, I would kind of wonder why Apple would put a feature with the word Pro in it on their base model iPhones. I mean, come on. We've seen this strategy before with their chipsets, like the A18 and A18 Pro. So I feel like they would instead possibly do what Google is currently doing, where the Pro models can go fully adaptive Whereas, say, the base model can switch between 120 Hz, 60 Hz, or 1 Hz. Or they might do what Samsung did with their Galaxy S23, letting it go down to only 10 Hz at most. Anyways, we do know that it will have 120 Hz and an always-on display, which is more than good enough for most people. Also a change for the display, the rumors are split on if it will stay at 6.1 inches or if it will go up to 6.3 inches, like the current iPhone 16 Pro. To me, I feel like it would most likely stay at 6.1 inches, as the bigger display for the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max is mostly due to razor-thin bezels, which doesn't seem like something that'll make its way to the base model iPhone. And when the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max both got bumped up 0.2 inches in screen size, the base model 12 stayed the exact same. Along with that, Apple could make a much stronger ceramic shield with an anti-reflective coating, which will be much appreciated, as I've seen the one on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and it looks absolutely incredible. It does seem like a pro feature, so I don't know if it'll make it to the base model iPhones. Also though, Apple is doing something very weird, possibly switching back to curved sides. See, iPhones have been switching back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for a long time, starting with the original iPhone having curved sides, the iPhone 4 switching to straight sides, the iPhone 6 switching back to curved sides, and the iPhone 12 finally going back to straight sides to enable wireless charging, as the back panel has to be glass for that to work. But they also want the sides to be durable, using metal. So, it is quite surprising that the iPhone 17s will probably switch back. But what we've been hearing is that there will be a smoother transition between the edges of the device and the back cover due to a new glass and metal splicing material process, which would be interesting. I, like many others, like the more modern and futuristic look of straight sides, but I guess they just had to find a way for the new design to be distinguished from the previous one. And, of course, it's going to be a lot easier in the hand. Also for all models, a 24-megapixel 6-element lens front camera will be introduced, which will be a pretty big step up from the previous 12-megapixel 5-element lens. But along with that, the Pro Max will be getting a new 48-megapixel telephoto camera, which means it will be the first iPhone to offer a triple 48-megapixel camera setup. Apparently, both Pro models will actually get a completely new design with a horizontal rectangular camera bar instead of the usual square stovetop, which is likely to give the camera sensors more space and make it larger. But weirdly, apparently, the iPhone 17 Pro models will have a 1/1.3-inch main sensor, which is actually a very slight downgrade from the iPhone 16 Pro models with a 1/1.28-inch main sensor. Will you notice this? Absolutely not. But is it weird and kind of messed up that Apple is doing this? Yeah, definitely. But this isn't the only new thing about the design of the iPhone 17 Pros, as the design this year would be a big focus. So let's talk about a few more things that will happen to the designs of the iPhone 17 Pros. To start, we'll be switching back to aluminum instead of titanium, which is weird considering titanium actually is stronger than aluminum, and that the iPhone 15 Pros literally introduced titanium just 2 years ago. Anyways, it's important to note that Apple has been using aluminum in their base model iPhones for a while now. But for the top-of-the-line phone, they haven't used aluminum since, I think the iPhone 8 or something. Even though it is stronger, titanium is definitely heavier, so we will get some pretty big and pretty significant weight savings. Not only this, but Apple is said to be putting aluminum on the top half of the back of the phone, keeping the bottom half glass to enable wireless charging. And not only will this make the back stronger, but it means it'll also look sick. We haven't gotten a two-tone iPhone finish or even phone in such a long time. And to be honest, I really miss it. Another design change rumored is yet another button. Yeah, this is going to be the third year in a row we've gotten a new button. Think about it. On the iPhone 15 Pros, we got the action button. On the 16 Pros, we got the camera control. And with this phone, we will probably see a button that will replace both the volume and action buttons. Most think the functionality of this button will be that swiping along the side will change the volume and pressing on it will be like the action button. A lot like the camera control. I really hope that this time around Apple will let us triple tap or double press and do a different action, as that was something we had really hoped for on the launch of the 15 Pro's action button, but we didn't get it. Okay, design is the star of the show for these new Pro phones, but it's not the only thing. So let's get into some of those other things it will get. As usual, it will have a new A19 Pro chipset, which sadly won't have TSMC's latest 2nm technology, but along with the base A19 chip, it will get a new 3nm process called N3P. Also on the inside, the Pro phones will get the easier to remove batteries that the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus currently have, which will make it a lot easier on repairs. I've already talked about everything going on with the cameras, but if you truly want a camera upgrade, you might want to wait for the 18 Pros, as they are said to get a mechanical aperture, which would be an absolutely groundbreaking feature, as non-American manufacturers like Xiaomi have already done this in their Ultra phones. The iPhone 18 Pros are also said to get that new 2nm process chip and LTPO Plus, whatever that means when it comes out. Okay, back to the iPhone 17s. Wait, no, never mind. That's it for the iPhone 17 Pro. What do I mean by that? I mean, there will be quite a few features that the iPhone 17 Pro Max will have that the iPhone 17 Pro will not. This includes the 48 megapixel telephoto up from 12 megapixels, 12 gigs of RAM for better Apple Intelligence instead of 8 gigs, I suspect, and also a possibly smaller dynamic island incorporating an under-display camera. I don't like this, as when the Pro and Pro Max first came out, they were meant to be pretty much the same phone, with the Pro Max being larger, but oh well, I guess the average person wouldn't notice most of these things. Also though, the differences between the 17 and the 17 Pro Max will be smaller than ever, with mainly just the 5x telephoto being the biggest difference. 120Hz ProMotion and the telephoto camera were the biggest reasons to get the Pro to this point. But now that the base model iPhone 17s will have ProMotion, there will literally be no big reasons to get the Pro. I mean, sure, you get things like a 48 megapixel ultra-wide instead of 12 megapixels, LiDAR, the new design of course, faster data transfer, a barely faster A19 Pro chip, 4K 120, and the button that replaces volume and action, but those are all very small and teeny things that you would barely notice. So my advice is that this year, unless you are someone who really needs the best of the best camera, there is really no point in getting the Pro phone this year. Now, you may have been lost in all the iPhone news, but also at the same event, we will see the introduction of the AirPods Pro 3, which will get some minor improvements, such as a new H3 chip for even better ANC and sound quality, which, okay, I'm not trying to be negative here, but the AirPods Pro 2, even after 2 years, are still among the best earbuds by any company out there, so don't expect drastic improvement. What will be interesting though are some new health features. So obviously, via a software update, we got hearing health on AirPods Pro 2, which actually got onto my top tech of 2024 in my Innovation Awards video. But with the AirPods Pro 3, we will also get a heart rate sensor, which I know many of us work out with earbuds, and even possibly a body temperature sensor that could read throughout the day and tell you, say, if you were having a fever. This would be really cool, but it would be even cooler if you could work in tandem with your Apple Watch and give you more accurate readings, which is something that the Galaxy Ring and Watch can do together. Apparently, the AirPods Pro 3 will also have a new design, but not many rumors have emerged on that yet. We will also likely see things like a smaller case with no physical pairing button, just like the AirPods 4, but also improved battery life. Hold up. For this event, we will also have 3 new Apple Watches, starting with the SE3, which will likely have a colorful plastic body instead of aluminum, in a controversial design choice to reduce the cost even further down to $199, going back to the days of the iPhone 5C. Other than that, there aren't that many rumors for this new watch, but for Series 11, there is a completely different story. 2025 will mark the 10th year that Apple has been selling the Apple Watch, and unlike the Series 10, which I was rather disappointed with, it will have a pretty important improvement. This is that it will finally have a blood pressure sensor, which will be a major breakthrough in health in many ways. The Ultra 3 will also get this, but some frosting on the top is that it will have satellite connectivity, which even though it was on the iPhone for a while, now ever since the iPhone 14 with emergency SOS via satellite, the iPhone 15 adding roadside assistance via satellite, and iOS 18 adding messages via satellite, the Apple Watch, which is the actual thing that's always with you, has never had it before, and it will be pretty awesome. There are also rumors that the Ultra 3 will get a binned version of like 5G, which will also be pretty cool, as right now their watches are all stuck on LTE. Also, though with not many rumors, the Apple TV 4K will likely get a refresh, with possibly a built-in camera and, of course, Apple Intelligence. The HomePod Mini will also probably get a new version, which will have better audio quality, of course, and new colors. Then, we get to later in the fall, where Apple will release their M5 MacBook Pro, which is most likely just a chip upgrade, with the M6 being a true redesign. This will mean that it will finally have an OLED display, a much needed thinner body, and possibly, finally, no notch. We will possibly also have a new iPad Pro, iMac Pro, and Vision Pro. To start, the iPad Pro we just got a design overhaul on, and there's likely that it won't have another design overhaul, and it will mostly just be the M5 chip that is new. But also the iMac Pro. Like, do you remember this thing? Well, I certainly don't, as it came out much before I started liking tech. So I'm really hoping to see it. The main reason that Apple is doing this is because, again, many people don't feel like a 24-inch all-in-one is big enough, and most people like a larger screen, say a 27 or 32-inch one. And finally, we might also see the introduction of a new Vision Pro. As I've mentioned before, the sales were not so great, so let's hope Apple can get back on track with their successor. The main reasons it doesn't sell well are, well, of course, the price, the weight, and to be honest, just how limited and few things it can do. And the thing is, you can do everything that the Vision Pro can do, but on your phone and a lot faster. And you're not going to spend $3,500 just to watch movies better, are you? So right off the bat, Apple is said to be fixing comfort issues, making it much more comfortable, and fingers crossed, a lot later too. It will also have a bigger, brighter display, and more detailed display, along with the M5 chip and R2 chip, which, again, fingers crossed, will finally enable Apple Intelligence, as their most expensive device right now literally still doesn't have the latest and best software features, along with the Apple Watch. Okay, that is Apple's roadmap for 2025, which looks to be super promising and definitely making it up for 2024. But I am also going to include some other tech that is non-Apple related. One of these will be the Android XR platform that Google and Samsung unveiled pretty recently, which I'm excited for in consumer products that we can actually buy. It seems a lot like the Vision Pro software, but it has Gemini built in to help you navigate and do things more efficiently. Samsung showed off their Project Muhan headset, while Google showed off some AR glasses, which both seemed very impressive. Especially the glasses, which look a lot like normal glasses while being as capable as, say, the Meta Orion or Snap Spectacles. And of course, because it's a Google product, it will likely have something that makes it all the nicer integrating with your Google products. Samsung is also hoping to undercut Apple's Vision Pro price, so hopefully $2,000 or something, fingers crossed. Samsung recently came out with their new S25 series, which has a few mixed impressions. They've rounded the corners, flattened the edges, added 10-bit HDR video recording, a new Pro visual engine in their camera for better camera quality, and gave a much-deserved 50-megapixel ultra-wide on their S25 Ultra, along with adding a Snapdragon X Elite chip to all of their new models, and something called Pro Scaler that allows them to sharpen what is on your screen by around 40% using AI. And that is the main selling point here. See, this is the part where it gets mixed impressions. They've added a lot of new AI features, but there aren't that many hardware changes on the outside. But let's get into those AI features. This will essentially be my impressions video. Okay, so the biggest thing to start is the new assistant, which is like a cross between Bixby and Gemini. It can carry out multiple actions for your device while also being a smart LLM. It is triggered by only the power button, no voice, and is a lot like an agent for your phone, which is one of the much anticipated advancements in AI for 2025. And then there's the other ones, like Audio Magic Eraser, which has been on Pixels for years now, a morning brief to start out your day, a way to search for specific photos, just like Apple's newest AI, and Best Face, which chooses the best frame from a photo to save. The Ultra also has Samsung's first ever spatial temporal filter, which can distinguish between moving and stationary objects when shooting video to essentially make sure the moving objects aren't blurry and the stationary objects aren't grainy. We actually also got a slight downgrade, which means you can't use your S Pen as a remote for your camera anymore. Overall, it doesn't seem like a huge leap up from last year, as the S24 Ultra was already one of the best phones of 2024, but it is kind of disappointing as we probably all hoped for a little more. They also teased a thinner Galaxy S25 Edge, which was much anticipated in rumors, but otherwise that's it. We'll witness a new Fold also from Samsung, which will have a new design much thinner than the Fold 6. But this will come with some sacrifices, as Samsung will also remove the layer on the screen that lets the S Pen work with it, so they will have to design a new one that'll work through Bluetooth. It will get slightly bigger and wider, and will possibly feature the Ultra's 200 megapixel main sensor. The Flip 7 is also rumored to get a bigger display from 6.7 to 6.85 inches, mostly due to shrinking bezels, but other than that, this new Flip is mostly a mystery. Turning to Google, we will see new Pixel 10s that will likely be shown off in August, where it will have new AI features, of course, like Speak to Tweak in the editor, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then Magic Mirror, which could use AI to suggest outfit combinations or makeup styles based on the user's appearance. There could also be a sketch-to-image tool in, say, their Pixel Studio app. But along with the AI features, the main selling point would be a new completely Google-made Google chip, which would make its performance much faster than the terrible Samsung and Google collaborated Tensor chips. Some other hopes are a 1 to 110 refresh rate for the base Pixel 10, a somehow improved display, and possibly a new main camera sensor going from 50 to 64 megapixels. But before that, in March, we will see the Pixel 9a, which will have a new design in which there is no camera bar and just a flat camera bump. That would be nice, as I haven't seen one phone in my life that wouldn't wobble on a table. It is also expected to get a 48 megapixel camera sensor instead of 64 megapixels, which may seem like a slight downgrade, but it likely means the pixels will be much larger than they currently are on Google's mid-ranger. Along with that, Nintendo recently unveiled its new Switch 2 in a teaser, which will have a bigger screen and bigger controllers, a new slick black look, a new stand to prop it up, an incredible and creative mouse feature for the controllers that will possibly be one of the main selling points, a higher resolution display, and a whole lot more. I'm not a gamer myself, but if you are, this new Switch seems pretty sick. But hey, it's not about all the new hardware we're expecting. 2024 was a big year for AI, where nearly every big tech company was advertising how groundbreaking its AI is. But that was the development, as 2025 is going to be an even bigger step, it seems. Like last year was the end of development, as this year will be a big thing with AI agents that can assist you with whatever you're doing on your device, like we just saw with the Galaxy S25 series. 2025, it feels, will be the start of something new. And of course, as mentioned, many companies like Samsung, Google, and Apple will be pushing their AI on their devices even further. This year will hold many advancements in tech that we've been hoping for in a long time. And you'd better bet I'll be there for every moment of it. 2025 will be insane. 2025 will be crazy. 2025 will be awesome. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Alexplained, signing out.